Good evening and welcome to this evening's episode of Sports Scene. Now, Grandpa Jeremy couldn't join us. He isn't feeling too well, so get well soon, Grandpa.
Get well, Jeremy. We are missing you on set of Sports Scene.
But don't worry, I'm joined by the lovely Lorraine Genia. Welcome, Lorraine.
Thanks. Always a pleasure joining you.
Awesome stuff. Now, this weekend was massive. On Saturday evening, saw a fight night between some Queensland fighters and versus some of our very own homegrown boxers.
Yes, the Lamana Fight Night saw many of Team PNG boxers fight. Now, it was good to see them come back just from the Philippines. They've been training there in the lead up to the 2015 Pacific Games. A few disappointing results, seeing Charlie Kiama, Rafael Abaki, otherwise known as Rafael Akaura,
one of our very own.
But I guess it all goes back to what their coach Nicholson said about him wanting the team to reach their peak in July.
Now, it was really good seeing a couple of those fights because those fights that the PNG fighters lost weren't very, how would I say, they didn't lose badly. They were very close. They just managed to lose. It was very unfortunate, but the Australian fighters just got the upper hand.
Yes, many of the fights actually came to a split decision between the judges, particularly in the last bouts, as was seen with Rafaela's fight. Yes. Now, Elijah Levette was there for the duration of the night.
Yeah, so basically the last fight, I met up with Elijah and we were just talking about the fights. And he was so impressed by Captain Courageous of the team, Tom Boga.
Yep.
Tom Boga, in his fight, first round, they had to call off the match. Too good, too fast. I reckon he did extremely well. And I'm just so excited to see how this guy is going to perform. He's one of the most experienced fighters in the team. And I reckon, you know, being at the forefront and leading the way he's done is a really good sign for the team. Now, I bet the performance that they had over the weekend is a really good stepping stone.
Yeah, it definitely is a good stepping stone. Like, Tom Boga is definitely a force to be reckoned with in the ring. So is Charlie Kiama. And it is good preparation, and I guess, you know, they did showcase a bit of what they're about prior to the 2015 Pacific Games.
Back to the drawing boards, work on that, and I'm sure they're going to come out bigger and better. So, yeah, here are some of the highlights of what happened at the Lamana Fight Night.
We're going to be absolutely
There was a total of 11 bouts last night. The first was the 49 kg division between Charlie Kiama and Australia's Josh English. English is the 49 kg Queensland champ. Charlie put up a good fight, but it wasn't enough to secure a win.
the blue corner, Josh English.
The first fight between the ladies was in the 51 kg division, which saw PNG's Philo MacGyver take on Queensland's Sheneka Johnson. After 8 minutes of 4 rounds of exciting boxing, a split decision between the judges was made and the bout went in favour of the Queenslander. The super heavyweight fight for the night was in the 91 kg plus division between PNG's Vincent Cora in the blue corner and Australia's Justice Huni in the red corner. The heavyweights went at each other in the first 2 rounds. In the third round, Justice Huni capitalized on the tired Vincent and snuck out a win. In the women's 60 kg, Rafaela Baki took on young Sky Nicholson in an entertaining frenzy. Both girls went at each other in an equally matched fight. After the final round, a split decision was made by the judges that went Sky Nicholson's way.
Blue corner, Sky Nicholson.
In the 75 kg, PNG's Jonathan Kiama hammered his way through Clay Waterman. The bout was stopped in the second round. Waterman could not continue due to injury, declaring Keama the winner. The Bougainvilleans in the PNG team, Henry Umings and Thaddeus Katoa, also won their bouts as they put on an extremely entertaining fight against the Queenslanders. The final match, which was also the quickest bout, so the referee stopped the match in the very first round. PNG captain Tom Boga threw knockout punches at opponent Ben Bowes, resulting in minor concussions, having the ref stop the match.
Is the blue corner, Tom Boga.
The fight night turned out to be a success with Telecom PNG, Lamana and other business houses sponsoring some of the bouts.
Awesome stuff there. Go Team PNG as they prepare for the Pacific Games.
Go Rafaela.
Rafaela, one of our very own. She's actually the host of the
she
sports
was
scene.
the face of sports scene, so I know a lot of you are missing her, but you will get to see her in action come the Pacific Games. Speaking of which, 12 days to go, Dion. How are you feeling?
I'm excited. I just can't wait. We've been following, as reporters, we've been following the progress of Team PNG, and it's really exciting. I can't wait to see our athletes. They've been training for a really long time, and it'll be really exciting. So make sure you do get out there and support Team PNG.
Yeah, now just on that note of their preparations, Chef de Mission Richard Kassman last week in an interview with EMTV did make mention that, you know, Team PNG are definitely going to surprise a lot of people. So I guess it will be interesting to see what happens come the 4th of July. Now, we do have a lot of favorites in weightlifting.
Definitely.
On the track and field, Toya Whistle, Betty
girls,
Borwat, Nelson Stone and Moen Bueno as well.
Exciting.
And team sports, we've got volleyball.
Definitely, pretty sure that
we all should keep a lookout. So, yep, 12 days to go. Don't forget to join us on PNG's lead broadcaster of the 2015 Pacific Games, MTV.
So make sure you do catch it. If you can't go to the venues, you can catch it right here on MTV. Now, after the break, we will take out a new sport being introduced to Papua New Guinea, Ekidan. Do not go anywhere. Welcome back to the show. Now, there's a new sport being introduced to Papua New Guinea, and that is the sport of Ekidan.
Ekidan.
Yeah, Ekidan.
Now, excuse me for sounding like a terrible sports reporter, but what is it? A lot of people are actually questioning it. Is it a martial art or what is it?
It's a sport from Japan now. Ekidan, it's a traditionally Japanese sport. Now, it's a marathon. It's a marathon sport.
Oh, so it's not martial arts?
No, it has nothing to do with fighting or anything like that. Now, the sport is a relay marathon. Does that make sense? So pretty much what happens is in a regular relay, you usually have a baton which they pass on. But in the sport of Ekidan, instead of a baton, they use a sash cloth, I mean.
So it's same technique as a relay?
Yes. So all the runners waiting at a certain area, and then you run over and then you pass on to the person that you're in your team, and they wear the sash cloth, and then they continue on, and then they pass it on to the next runner, and so on and so forth.
Now that's just been recently introduced here in Port Moresby.
Yes.
Do they have a big following? Like, what's the following like so far?
It's still relatively new, so they've gone out to a couple of schools, and they've one of a triathlon athlete from Japan is in the country supporting, introducing the sport. And yeah, so they're pretty much just introducing the rules. It doesn't have too many rules, but they're not only teaching about the sport of Ekidan, but it's also to create a good relationship between both countries. So it will teach good.
So it's just merging their relationship.
Merging the relationship
So
through sport.
Since you have, you know, these people from Japan come in to introduce it,
Yes.
is there any issues in terms of the language barrier? Do they have a translator?
They do. You'll be quite surprised that a couple of the Papua New Guineans can speak Japanese. Not that they grew up speaking Japanese, but they've had some experience living in Japan. So I met up with Masato-san a few weeks back when they were having plans about introducing the sport, and he had a translator. So there's always a translator for to help with the language barrier. But I reckon it's a good sport. I wouldn't mind trying it, but I don't think I can run that far.
Well, I don't know. I mean, we do have quite a few long distance runners, so I
Yes.
think it would be a good sport to introduce.
Definitely.
And especially within schools, it's always good to introduce something at just that level, because then it contributes to the development. And, you know, when you have kids that are interested in something, don't stop talking about it. They want to get all their friends involved. So it'll be really
true.
good.
That's true. Now I spoke to the organizers a while back, and how they wanted to introduce the sport to Papua New Guinea is that there is a Papua New Guinean living in Japan, and he saw the sport and he thought that, wow, maybe this sport would actually it'd be suited for Papua New Guineans. So he wrote to the Minister for Sport, and that's why since then they've actually got the ball rolling. So they want to introduce the sport to Papua New Guinea, and I reckon it'll be really interesting.
Yeah, and I guess it does make sense because Sports Minister Justin Chichenko has made mention quite a few times that, you know, now this is a sporting revolution.
Yes.
For Papua New Guinea. Sports is evolving, and to have a lot of these new sports come in and being introduced here in Papua New Guinea would be actually quite good for, going back to what I said, the development of sports and all of that.
So yeah, over the weekend and end of last week, there was the introduction of the sport to the students at the Gordon Secondary, and they got to have a bit of a run and have a feel of how Ekidan is played. So take a look at a bit of the Ekidan action from Gordon Secondary.
It is a long-distance marathon relay, which instead of using a baton, a sashcloth is worn. It is a big sport in Japan and has been introduced to many different countries around the world. Triathlon Olympian Hiroyuki Nishiruchi demonstrated to the students how the sash is worn during the race.
First of all, first runner put Taski on the shoulder and tie, put this tighter, and this in the shorts or pants. So running first runner.
Yesterday, the Ekidan committee with the Gordon Secondary School, Ekidan volunteer Oliver Nombri gave a brief history of the sport to the students. Then the students began the first ever Ekidan race in Papua New Guinea. Each team consisted of 4 members, with male and females having their own team. Participants are usually aged between 18 to 25. However, it is open to younger and older categories as well. Ekidan may be seen as a unique model, not just a sport, but embracing history, education and culture.
Awesome sport there. It'll be really interesting to see. I actually might get out there and actually give it a go.
Yeah, I guess only time can tell.
We'll see. Now, after the break, Lorraine's gonna take over the show a little bit because we're gonna talk about her favorite sport,
As
rugby.
always with rugby.
So yeah, don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. And welcome back to the show. Now, over the weekend, the 15s and 7s national rugby teams had a surprise guest, none other than Australian Wallabies halfback and Queensland Reds halfback Will Genia.
Yes, there was a lot of rugby action over the weekend at Tarama Barracks. In fact, it was preparations for the national sevens team leading into the 2015 Pacific Games. We got there and we found out that it was also a trial game for the national 15s team. Will did come along. Well, he was in the country for about 4 or 5 days, just a break. As the Reds have just come to the end of their Super Rugby campaign for 2015. He did play along with some of the boys.
Awesome.
It was a real, it did boost their morale leading into the 2015 Pacific Games.
I mean, I'll just cut you off. Definitely, I mean, having someone of his caliber playing one of the best halfbacks that Australia has ever seen. I mean, I hear a lot of people saying that he was like the next George Gregan, and for the boys to have the opportunity to play alongside him must have been a really good boost for some of them.
Yeah, it was a good boost, but let's not forget this is where he started playing. So some of the boys, he has played alongside them before, but for them they were all pretty psyched to have him back. But he wasn't the only one. Now, his younger brother Nigel is also back in the country.
Is he trailing for
vying for a spot in the national 15s team. Now, he's just ended his 6-month-long campaign in Romania with one of the rugby teams over there. They were lobbying for entrance into the Europe Cup. Unfortunately, that didn't go so well.
Unfortunately.
But the trials did go really well for the 15s and of course the 7s boys as well. This was a good platform for them leading into the Pacific Games as mentioned earlier. But let's take a look at what some of the boys had to say.
At the moment the squad's sort of still coming together, so I think with the games today was more for the 7s boys in preparing for the SPA Games, but I think for us as 15s it's a good chance to just get out, get rid of whatever cobwebs we have leading into the final camps, heading into the Oceania Cup.
Good play out block 7s boys in preparation for the Pacific Games. I just need to work out some areas all identify. Match fitness blow, up to standard yet, so they need to work hard on it. So. Yeah, but overall I'm all go good with them. Preparation.
Play against national 7s team. Gimol la game film the 15s got size na. The play more can the challenging game lo golo Pacific tournament game lo Pacific Games.
Awesome stuff there. Now the 15s team is preparing for the Foro Cup.
Yes, so the Federation of Oceania Rugby Union Cup will be held after the Pacific Games and it will be hosted here in Port Moresby, so that's some exciting stuff for not just the rugby fraternity but also the sporting fraternity here. They will be out to take the cup from Cook Islands, who are the defending champs, so I guess it will be really exciting, but it will exciting and interesting to some extent as well, because there hasn't been a 15s tournament all year, so the 15s boys have actually just been idle for the past couple of months. Then again, Coach Sydney Wesley, who's also the National Coaching Director of PNG Rugby Football Union, has been adamant on sustaining the flow of rugby, 15s, not just in Port Moresby, but in the other centres as well.
But I mean, now we have really world-class facilities, so I'm pretty sure that we'll be able to host a couple more tournaments in Port Moresby. Maybe give a chance for the other centres as well to take it out
definitely.
there.
Now there is talk that the Foro Cup will be held at the Sir Hubert Murray Stadium, but I guess that'll all be confirmed after the Pacific Games, because all the focus is on the games at the moment.
Definitely.
But I think what the 15s boys are trying to do is actually just come out there and show that, look, there's not just the 7s boys. We're here as well.
And to look beyond the Pacific Games, because a lot of the teams are aiming for the Pacific Games, but have that outlook that everything doesn't end during the Pacific Games. There's a lot more to come. It's just because the Pacific Games is one of the biggest sporting events, is the biggest sporting event in the Pacific.
In the region, definitely. But I think it's not that. It's not to do with them thinking, oh, it's just the Pacific Games. Speaking to many of the teams taking part in the games, they do know that there is a lot, beyond the Pacific Games. I mean, we do have the Youth Commonwealth Games
in Samoa.
Definitely.
That's straight after.
And we have the 2016 Rio Olympics. So a lot of the athletes and teams in particular are aiming
looking
for
beyond
that.
for that. So it's really exciting. And the 15s and 7s boys are another team that you should get behind and support for the Pacific Games. It'll be really exciting because Fiji will be coming in, all the other countries will be coming in. So we do want us to get behind.
Exciting and interesting.
Get
so
behind
we'll
and
see how
support.
that goes.
Now, that pretty much wraps up our segment on rugby union. After the break, we'll take a look at a bit of the NRL State of Origin and the SP PNG Hunters. Do not go anywhere. Welcome back to the show. Now the SP Hunters have continued their awesome form. They from backing up from their awesome performance in front of the new home crowd in Port Moresby. Yep. At the Sir John Guy Stadium. They backed it up this weekend. They defeated.
Yes, they secured their 7th win in a row against Sweethead Seagulls, 32-24, which places them 3rd on the ladder.
Awesome, awesome. Coming closer to the finals, being placed third.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, the results are definitely a lot better than their performance last year. So hopefully this year we can see them make it to the finals.
And the whole country is behind you.
Yeah,
Go
definitely.
The
Go the Hunters.
Go the Hunters. Now, last week was the State of Origin, and the Mighty Blues have leveled the series. It was an awesome game. Michael Jennings.
It was an awesome game. Unfortunately, the Blues may be close to losing Michael Jennings for the next game. But
he played awesome. It was an awesome game. To all you Maroon supporters, they did come close.
They did come close. Whatever. I mean, it only makes the series interesting when you have, 1-1. But I think Game 3 will be quite interesting because, the Maroons have never lost at Suncorp Stadium.
And it's going back, so the Maroons, you guys have, if you're a Maroon supporter, it's going to be a massive game.
I'm a Blues supporter, diehard Blues, but I'm really sorry to say, but I think the Maroons might take it.
They, in front of a home crowd and, the Queensland crowd, they always get behind the Queenslanders every time it's a home game, so it'll be really interesting.
Now, the game does fall on the 8th of July.
Exactly. In between.
Yes, we will be broadcasting a lot of the Pacific games, but we will still have that game shown live on MTV. So don't forget to tune in.
Even though we'll be all Pacific games, we'll be in the frenzy of the Pacific games. The last game of the State of Origin, the decider, will be on the 8th, and MTV will be showing it live. So you can
take
catch
a breather from the game. So definitely catch that. We'll still be out on the streets engaging public feedback. So, if you're one of those people that always see us around asking people about the State of Origin.
And the Pacific Games, now that it's coming closer.
Be friendly. We'll be out there looking for you.
And if you do catch us doing one of our jobs doing one of our news jobs, do come over and say hi, and we can get your thoughts on. Maybe you can wish the Team PNG
well,
give them some well wishes, and we'll find out your picks on who you think is going to win the State of Origin. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up this evening's episode of Sports Scene. Thank you, Lorraine, for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Sorry, Grandpa Jeremy was sick, so you had to come in. But
That's all right.
That's all right.
Get well soon.
Get well soon, Jeremy. Yeah, the hotspot will be on Thursday night. Rotopom will be having their last episode just before the Pacific Games.
Our final episode next week, Wednesday, so do stay tuned. I think we might give many of you an insight into the Games Village, catch up with a few Team PNG athletes.
It's just going to be before the game, so it'll be something that you will want to catch up. We'll be catching some of the teams that will be coming in early for the games.
Catching up with some of our rivals, so it'll be good to see why they're here and what they're aiming for
during the games. But like I've been saying all along, do get behind Team PNG. If you haven't got your tickets, make sure you do get them because they're selling out fast. And yeah, whatever sport you love, do get behind the team and show your support for the country and support in the right nature of supporting. That's it from Lorraine and I.
Thanks for joining us.
Have a pleasant evening and good night.
Good night.